Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn all the most efficient, powerful, abundant ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent, increasing revenue year over year. I cover topics from pricing, sales, networking, objections, ideal clients, some marketing ideas, and really about how to increase your cash flow and profitability and set boundaries so you have the firm that you've always dreamt of. You're no longer giving away your time for free. You're no longer putting yourself on sale, and you are being paid for the value and worth that clients actually appreciate you for. So you'll learn tips and strategies as well as hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm of your dreams and the life full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is an IRS enrolled agent, and she's the co-founder of the Certified Real Estate Tax Strategist credential. She's also worked exclusively with real estate investors since 2017, and she is a national educator for real estate-related tax topics and much more. But before we welcome our special guest to the show, if you're like most accounting, tax, and bookkeeping firm owners, make sure to listen up because I want to show you how you can double your fees, get paid up front by every client, and create consistent monthly recurring revenue without burning yourself out or working more hours than you are right now. And here's the thing, even if you're paid really, really well and you're charging premium fees already, you're probably leaving a lot of cash on the table. And let's face it, you're working way too hard, way too many hours, and there's clients that want to see you. And your revenue might look good on paper, but you still continue to struggle financially. And I don't want that for you. So if you're ready to explore what's possible for your firm, then head on over to theabundantcall.com to book a call with myself and my team if you are ready to start changing and creating the firm you've always dreamt of. It is possible. So head on over to theabundantcall.com. And now let's welcome our special guest, Natalie, to the show. Welcome, Natalie, to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to our discussion on why choosing a niche is important, but more importantly, the real estate niche and how you got into it and what a difference it's made for your firm. So really looking forward to connecting on that and sharing with other accounting, tax, bookkeeping firm owners that are listening on the importance of it and really how, I think even before when we spoke a week or two ago or three, you have a waiting list. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I've put up a waiting list each March leading into the deadline. And at this point, it's at over 100 people. So it builds up really quickly.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about how you can create a waiting list because so many of the firm owners that I meet with, Natalie, tell me, Michelle, I have a problem with leads. And I'm always like, no, it's really not about your leads. It's about your conversions and your sales process. And how do you create the demand like Natalie has to attract the right type of clients where you really don't need any leads. You need to convert at higher fees, charge premium rates, and really focus on how you can deliver more value and more service and be literally the go-to person for your clients. So I'm very excited to have you here. But before we start, can you just share with everyone 30 seconds, like a little bio about you? I think it's always best to come from you, even though I did it before we even started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in tax since 2014 when I started working at public accounting firms, and I actually got into real estate at the same time. So that's how I kind of ended up specialized was accidentally. And since then, I have gotten my EA license and I opened my own firm in 2017 where I work exclusively with investors. And then for the past year, I have been teaching CE around the country as a national educator on kind of all things real estate as well.
Awesome. Love it. So why don't you start with us, 2017 to where we're at now. It's only been 6 years. You have a waiting list of 100 people. I'm sure it didn't start out that way. Can you share with everyone what were the challenges when you first started your firm that you can take us to that place, to that day where you said, you know what, I need to make a change. The way I've been going can no longer continue this way. And share with us how you felt back then and what were some of the struggles that you had with your firm when you first started out in 2017?
Yeah, so I feel like my kind of initial start was a little different than what a lot of people kind of start with. So I had been really present in a lot of real estate communities online and going to local investor meetings and things like that as well. And there's a lot of investors who want to work with a real estate specialized accountant. So basically, for me, as soon as I sort of announced that I was going on my own and having a firm working just with real estate, I, like, from that point forward, had a steady inflow of clients. The biggest mistake I made at first was pricing too low, even though it was still higher than the minimums at the large CPA firm where I was working previously. So I thought I was, hitting a premium price point, and I wasn't even close at that point.
And why? And maybe you can share with me, because I bet a lot of other listeners are thinking, I should just price my services around what the competition's doing, or one of the bigger firms is doing, or you look online with someone that you would compare yourself to, and you're like, oh, I should price myself like them. Can you share the thought process on why you thought that was the best thing? And then how you realized that you were too low? Like, how'd you even come to realize that that was too low if you thought that the bigger firm was charging that? If you could share and take us back to that time. And maybe an example of the client you were working with that told you maybe you were too low, or how that went down.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I knew I didn't want was, even though we were a bigger firm, we had no structure, no, like, we would accept any kind of client, any kind of format, and things were just messy. And there wasn't a lot of value being delivered to those clients, because when you have to be kind of that go-to person for every client in every field, it's hard to be a true expert at everything. So when I went out on my own, I knew that I was offering more value that way. And when I first started, I think just for a 1040 with just a single rental, my start price was either $650 or $700, something like that. And that was just, bare bone W-2 return, single rental. But what I quickly realized is that if you price up a little bit, you end up with this kind of level of client. It even gets a little worse if you get around a slightly higher price point, but still not a premium, because what I found was clients who are justifying your price versus somewhere else they could go for the same service for a smaller price, they're super price conscious. And so if they're stretching to get to your, $700 or $800 1040 fee, to them, that is like a huge cash outflow. They expect the world for what they've paid, because in their mind, that might be 3 times what they paid the year before. So if you stay in that price conscious point, you're going to have clients who just expect 4 times more than what they were promised, because to them that price seems just like they're really stretching to get to it. Versus if you go even higher, you're now out of that price conscious client point. So that middle ground is so dangerous.
Yeah, I love that. You have to get out of the price conscious point. I've never heard of it from that point of view, or those words. So I think it's so great that you're sharing that, because I'm always like, just go higher. I had our Abundant Millionaire Mastermind group today, and we were talking about what to price a client, for a tax plan. And I'm always like, you got to be so far out of range that people, think it's a little crazy. Maybe, you have to create some curiosity, not only in your messaging and your marketing and what you share, but even in your pricing, because otherwise, like you said, you're dealing with a type of clientele they're going to justify your price. Everything is just a price conversation. And at that point, you're never going to have a client that you can really go all in on, deliver the best value, the best service. And they're always going to be price conscientious. And it's not, like you said, they expect 4 times, 5 times more, because they gave you everything they had. They're putting everything in your hands. And who wants to walk around with that weight on your shoulders? Where if you go higher, we're just going to eliminate all them together. And now you get to work with clients who buy based on value. They're not as price conscious. They're not as price sensitive as well. So can you share with us, what was the client that broke the camel's back?
Oh gosh, there was so many, but what I very quickly kind of realized was it was my simplest clients where like the complexity of their work was was not was not hard, where they didn't really have a lot going on, but who were expecting the most and taking the most of my time because I was pricing their returns lower based on what was involved. But those complicated clients where I could charge a much higher fee, those are people who are already in a point where they weren't price conscious. They were like, yep, this is a business expense. They understood how business owners ran, so they weren't constantly like hounding for updates. They were just like, here's my information. We obviously paid for a good bookkeeper. Let us know if you need anything. Otherwise, let us know when it's done. Whereas the person who stretched to get to that middle price point where they might have only had one rental, to them, this was a big splurge, a big spend, and they're trying to get into real estate. So they wanted to go all in on this. And those were the people who were wanting to have phone calls all the time to go over their real estate and wanted to talk about all of these kind of hypothetical tax things because they were so new that it was like they just needed so much more guidance that they weren't really at a point of really needing yet. So it was just what I quickly found was those like literal easier clients when it came to the work were more time consuming than doing something where I could charge 4 times the price.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's probably scary for someone listening to hear that. And they're probably like, well, okay, Natalie, how did you do that? How were you not terrified that you weren't going to get a client? How did you overcome those in the internal dialogue of the inner chatter in your head? Even though your simple clients were the ones that thought it was the big splurge, it was a big spend, they're price conscious, they're justifying the prices, they're all those things that drive, I think, everyone nuts, and especially me. It drives me crazy to hear your all stories where you said, no, I'm going to go 4 times higher. I'm going to eliminate myself from the middle and go all the way to the top. You're 100% on your own at this time. Share with us how you made those shifts and the steps that you took. Like if you can break it down into 3 things or 4 things, walk us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was on my own. I was a small firm owner. I didn't have a secondary income. Like I wasn't married where I could like, if this, fall back on my spouse's income, like it was just me. So it kind of had to work. So what I quickly realized was that if you position yourself as an expert in something and really have the skill set to back it, you can justify, I don't want to say any price point, but any price point that's adding value. If I can put something in front of a client where I can save them, $40,000 this year, if I tell them my fee is a quarter of that, they're happy all day long because their last accountant didn't even consider these savings options. Like they weren't even having these discussions. So that was kind of the big light bulb for me, was that especially in real estate, they're real big on ROI. They are taught financial metrics. That is how they look at everything. So if they're spending X dollars on you, but it's saving them 4 times as much, they are happy to do it. But again, it's those advanced, knowledgeable, higher dollar clients. So that's why you've got to get out of that entry zone again.
Mm-hmm. And how do you find them now? Or how did you create your waiting list of 100 people?
Yeah, so it happened at first very organically. I was just in communities where I was adding value, and I'm really big on adding value for marketing versus
like what
cold marketing.
Let's get some specifics for the rest of our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So local real estate communities, this is huge. And I would recommend if anyone's looking to specialize in this, you probably have a local RIA meetup or just like if you just Google on Meetup Your City plus real estate meetup, there's likely a monthly or weekly meeting. There's probably several.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome place to go and spend some time and talk to the person hosting it, because that is who is going to be your biggest kind of connection point and who will be able to tell you who is worth talking to in the room, and speak at those events. If you provide value to these investors and you have now set yourself up as the expert to this community, it snowballs really quickly. Investors, most businesses, but they're always asking for referrals. So local communities is huge. There's also a ton of online communities. If there's an online Facebook group for If you want to stay local, you can find them for every city and state. You can find the general ones. So any of these kind of places where there's going to be real estate investors, you just need to put yourself and be valuable. Don't throw them a sales pitch. Throw them answers when they have tax questions, and then they'll come to you when they actually, when they're looking for a professional, or you start getting referred by others who have kind of seen you prove your knowledge is what typically happens.
Yep. Okay. And what would be the second thing after you put yourself out there and start answering tax questions and meeting with them? How did you create the meeting or the waiting list to the point that you have it now?
Yeah, so for me, it was a combination of being really present online, and then that kind of parlays into getting on 2 podcasts. So I've been on, tons of real estate podcasts over the years. And then that parlayed into teaching real estate more on the tax side as well, which then kind of just further backed my reputation of being really well versed in this and being an expert in the space. So anything you can do to add credibility to yourself, and not just, I hate to say like add credibility, like we're not trying to smoke and mirrors it, like build that credibility, really gain the knowledge point, and put yourself out there on any kind of social platform where you'll be seen as that expert.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you've been doing that you've seen fruitful, like in LinkedIn, or where are you putting most of your efforts on podcasting and speaking at events on teaching the real estate aspect, or what have you seen the highest ROI for you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not a LinkedIn person. I'm not on Twitter either, which I get yelled at by accountants all the time. I hear tax Twitter is where it's at. I'm really big on Facebook, and I use my personal page as a business page. I think it's a better way to do it. I think it gets better engagement, and it's just my preference. So I use my personal page to share all of my content. So I'm constantly sharing any episodes I'm on, any upcoming episodes, any classes I'm teaching, any tax updates related to real estate, any real estate market updates, all on my main page. And the advantage there is it kind of lets you spread far and wide. So if you're in a group sharing knowledge and people come to your page to check it out, if you are kind of doing what you're talking about as well, if they come to your page and also see a bunch of knowledge, it really just backs that skill set that you have.
Yeah. And what about the firm owner, Natalie, who's just thinking in their head, how does she possibly do this? I don't have any time. I'm either in a job and trying to get this firm off the ground on my own, or I'm doing it and I'm overwhelmed with the amount of work that the thought of attempting to, go to a meetup or do some online outreach on Facebook just seems daunting. What do you feel for a firm owner that is thinking right now, sounds great, Natalie, but that's a lot of work and that's really overwhelming. I don't even know the first step to take. What would you say to them?
Absolutely. I would say so we've all got a finite amount of time. If you could do one thing with your time to kind of get these clients, your best use of your time would be building your skill set specifically, not just in the tax side of things, but learning the real estate lingo. So if you only have an hour a week, learn something from it or with it, read a book on real estate, read a website, read anything you can, watch a YouTube channel of an investor. And then at the same time, Google the tax implications. Or like a lot of the classes I do, I try to make this link, because what it comes down to is that there is a huge demand. It is asked constantly in real estate how to find a tax professional who knows rentals and who knows real estate really well. And so all of us that specialize in it have a waiting list and basically no one to refer to. So if you build that knowledge set where someone who talks to you who is an investor knows that you understand what a BRRRR deal is or subject to, or kind of literally understands what they're doing and how to account for it, you won't struggle to get leads. There will be more than enough leads. Real estate is the only industry I can think of where they're so gung-ho on telling people you have to build your team and you need a good tax person, period. So they're looking for you. Like they paid money to get trained on real estate, and what they were told was find us.
Yeah. And it's also resonating with me because it's almost like if you learn the real estate lingo as a tax professional, being an EA or CPA, or even, for a bookkeeper that wants to specialize with rentals, I'm sure that becomes a hot mess if the books aren't
Hmm.
done properly. It's like learning a second language. You could be bilingual in Spanish and English and get really far in life, or you can become bilingual in real estate, tax, accounting, and English and get really far ahead in business for your firm and create yourself a niche that is, it sounds like still very untapped and lots of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of opportunity. And one of the biggest things they're told to ask is if you invest in real estate. So if you're a tax professional who also already owns rentals, that's already like one foot in the door. They see that you get what they're trying to do. And also being open minded. I think a lot of real estate is not taught, but they see a lot of like strategies and kind of ways to do it, ways to invest on TikTok or Instagram. And a lot of tax pros right off the jump kind of dismiss those ideas. You can't be the dismisser. You have to basically be able to tell if it's a valid idea or not, but be open to it. If they come to you with some crazy concept, say, I've never heard of that before, let's see how we can do that. A lot of it is totally legal and reasonable things, but again, it's that lingo. If you don't understand what they're doing and the way they're explaining it to you, a lot of professionals kind of null and void it before even getting the full understanding. So be open to those things.
Yeah. And, since this is the Abundant Accountant podcast and this is all about sales, and clearly this has increased your revenue, I'm guessing from 2017 to what you're doing now by
Mm-hmm.
niching down, by increasing your prices by 400%. Can you share with us what you've seen as an increase in revenue, either as a dollar amount or percentage on your annual revenue from where you were in 2017 to where you are now?
Yeah, so revenue wise and kind of pricing wise, like I said, at first I started, I think it was 750, 800, right in that for just the 1040. And then the other thing I realized was investors want that access to you. They don't want to pay per phone call. They want to know that if they're about to sell a property or something, real estate moves quickly. It's not like a restaurant or a business where it's, pretty consistent or there might be a slow season. Deals happen on the fly and you have to be fast. So they want someone they can ask a question to quickly. So I went from pricing by returns to pricing for an advisory package. So, like that package last year started at $5,000, and that was just for the tax advising and planning. That got you a tax plan, like an upfront kind of review and a feedback, and access for those questions by emails and a few phone calls. The return is priced separately. So, the return pricing is then based on your specific situation, but you have to buy that access first. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the return. Basically, if we haven't talked all year and I don't know what's happening, we're not doing that. So I went from, a $750 minimum, let's call it, to closer to $7,000 on average. And so I've cut my client numbers down year to year,
Yeah.
and my revenue has increased year to year.
Yep. And what would be the total revenue increase from where you started to where you are now?
Yeah, my first year, 2017, I think I did something silly like $30,000. But that was launch year, and that was when I still had a full time job. And then this year, we're definitely coming up on seven figures, especially with the education part on real estate as well. So, and that was from 17 to now. And then COVID actually added a large bump to it. A lot of people got started in real estate
Hmm.
when they kind of they couldn't go into their full time jobs or they were looking for an alternative security.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on your growth and reducing your client load and going from an average client value of 700 to 7,000. So that's pretty significant. Is there anything else, Natalie, that you would want to share with a firm owner that might be interested in going down this real estate language path, delivering the best advisory services to their clients and really understanding the industry in and out and creating their own wait list and getting referrals from one another like people like you? Is there anything that you want to share that we didn't touch on that you think would be really important for them to do as some next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say next steps would be big one. starting with the education, understanding the real estate, understanding the tax concepts as it relates to it. And then what I would encourage everyone to do is, if this is an area you think you want to specialize in, literally today, look up a local meeting and reach out to the person who puts it together and just say, I'm a local CPA or EA. I would love to speak for free at one of your upcoming events. Is that something you'd be interested in? And there's a good chance they will, and that will snowball. But if you're looking to really specialize on this niche, follow me. This is a big part of what I share. All of my teaching, like any CE classes I do, are in this area. And so that's all I'm ever trying to do, basically, is get people educated in this niche, because there's a huge demand. And frankly, I need somewhere to refer my leads to, like the overflow that I'm not trying to take in. So please specialize in this. We need more. There's a huge demand. So absolutely follow me.
Awesome.
Go out there and take some steps, meet some investors, and go from there. It'll snowball.
And your Facebook page, your personal one is, so they can go and follow your Facebook page.
Yeah, on Facebook, you can just find me as Natalie Kolodij. And then on, Instagram and other socials, I'm RE, like real estate, RE_tax strategist. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Well, I sent you over Chris, so you can refer some leads over to him and collaborate there. Thank you so much, Natalie, for taking out the time to share your story and successes, and keep up the great work. And just now your next step is what? Work part-time and do 7 figures?
Pretty much. My next step is basically step out of more of the preparation side and continuing to train staff to do that part, so I can focus on the education and being out there working with other tax professionals, because I love teaching this.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you here.
Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thank you all so much for joining Natalie and I today here on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It's always great to have amazing, inspiring speakers and people who have done it. And if you want to work less and you want to make more and you want to get paid up front and go from $700 average fee to a client per year to $7,000, it's absolutely possible. If you're a tax, accounting, bookkeeping firm over and you feel overworked, underpaid, or burnt out, I promise it's possible, and this is for you. And I can show you exactly how you can double your fees, how you can get paid up front and in full, and how you can create reliable, reoccurring revenue just like Natalie has, and work substantially less hours than you are right now. Make sure to head on over to theabundantcall.com to book your free session with myself and my team, and we'll cover 3 things on our phone call. The phone calls are completely complimentary, by the way, but the trick and the catch is you have to show up committed. That's all I ask. We're going to go through where your firm's at right now and the things that are keeping you stuck, where you want to be in your firm and your life to make sure you are paid up front, and saving you a ton of money in the process from not having so many mistakes, and the exact next steps you can do to double your firm revenue right now. Every single client I've ever worked with, it all started from this phone call. It will turn into more confidence for you, charging those premium fees that are terrifying you, and doubling and tripling your revenue, eliminating burnout, and actually feeling excited about the work and getting control back of your future. So head on over to theabundantcall.com, book your call. We look forward to talking to you, and I'll see you in the next episode.